There's a lot of misconceptions when it comes to how you rinse your holding tank.
So they claim that Pine Sol will go in and it will take your poop and make it not break down. Well, there's a few things to know there. The other thing I will say too that's gonna really make people hate me.
Today, we're talking everything poop. I am here with Ricky from Unique, so we can talk about everything with the septic tank and how to properly take care of it. There's a lot of controversial information out there, so I really wanted to get it right and talk about the truth of it. So Ricky, why don't you give us some information on the product, on what you've learned about the tank system and everything?
Poop related.
Poop related,
Yeah,
yeah.
we can
Let's
talk poop.
Tanks. Let's
do
talk
it.
poop. Okay.
So we've been doing this for 30 years. One of the things that really separates us from a lot of the competition that's out there is the fact that this is all we do. You know, I mean, we don't have a ton of hard good products. We don't have a ton of, unrelated things to tanks. We just do tanks. So we live in the world of poop, which, we do it for you, so you don't have to.
Right.
But that means we test everything, we try everything. We formulate everything in-house. We manufacture everything in-house. So it's kind of like a start to finish thing for us. So if there's something happening in a holding tank, you can kind of rest assured knowing that we really are the experts on that topic because we deal with all of it all day long. So feel free to jump in, but I'll kind of give just some basics here. So probably the two biggest things that people deal with in holding tanks, number one is odors.
Yeah.
And number two is pyramid plugs, clogs, blockages, things of that nature. So there's kind of a lot around this. So you have a lot of people who just choose to not use paper because it can lead to clogs. And understandably, I will say this, when I first started getting into this, we're a family-owned business, so it's been kind of in my DNA forever. My grandfather started it. But when I first started really getting into the holding tank thing, probably 15 years ago, the products then were very different than the products today. And if you had gone back 15 years ago, I probably wouldn't have used paper in my toilet because the stuff that was on the market just wasn't capable of breaking down the waste that it is to this degree that we can do it now. So when it comes to clogs, I like to say it's a 50-50 situation. You like to use the right treatment and then pretend like that's all you have to do. The reality is there's practices that matter. So first and foremost, finding the right treatment is important, but also having the right process you follow is also important. So if you use a high quality holding tank treatment, and we would define that, by the way, as one that has bacteria and enzymes. Right. So there are a few types of products on the market. You have mineral based, you have chemical, which is like formaldehyde and bronopol. You don't see as much of those anymore, but there's still chemical, an example would be sodium percarbonate. People use that a lot as an oxidizer. So you have mineral, you have chemical, then you have enzyme only, and then you have bacteria or bacteria and enzyme. So those are kind of your four major products. If you're using a bacteria and enzyme tank treatment, we call that the gold standard because it's the only style of formula that can do everything: odor control, waste breakdown, and help clean your sensor probes. So let's just assume you're starting with the right product, a bacteria plus enzyme treatment. If you go and you throw a bunch of paper into your toilet and you're hyper focused on conserving water because you want to go do a 3-week trip in the mountains, you're going to quickly get a situation where you have this much water in your tank and this much paper in your tank.
And that starts a pyramid.
It does. And you can get the same thing with poop as well. And this is something that people don't necessarily understand. A lot of people think of pyramid plugs as only when you leave your black tank valve open. If you underuse water, you can absolutely get a pyramid plug even with your black tank valve closed. So you want to start with a bacteria and enzyme treatment. You can use any brand of toilet paper you want, but you got to make sure that that paper is staying underwater.
So you start out with how many gallons would you recommend?
Every tank is a little different because, you can imagine, let's say you're in a fifth wheel with 2 bathrooms. You might have 20 feet of horizontal pipe before you get to the tank itself. And if you put in 5 gallons, all you've done is filled up a small portion of that pipe. You're not even in the tank itself. So I would say it's less important that you pre-fill your tank. It's a good thing. It's more important that when you flush the toilet every time, you give it enough water. Make sure you sit there and hold that pedal down for a little time. If you're in a travel trailer or something where you can look straight down in, it's pretty easy because you can just make sure your level of water is always visible and not poop or paper. So use a bacteria and enzyme holding tank treatment. Use plenty of water, and it really is as simple as that. By having enough water inside there, you can move the bacteria around. The bacteria release enzymes. Those enzymes break down the paper and break down the poop. So the first thing to know is when it comes to clogs, super simple, keep your black tank valve closed, flush with plenty of water. And this is, I feel like this is one of those things that people are like, yeah, I hear you say that. And then they just don't go and do it because they want to take that trip that's 3 weeks long.
Right.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news. If you don't brush your teeth every day, your teeth are going to fall out. If you don't dump your tanks every 5 to 7 days, your tanks are going to have problems.
Right, and they're going to smell.
Yes.
They're sitting, they're going to smell.
100%. Whether you like it or not, whether you want to hear it or not,
Yeah.
there's no magic bullet on the market that can, there's a lot of products that will promise to take you 2 weeks or 3 weeks. They just can't. They're just overstating the truth. So from a paper perspective, a clog perspective, it's really simple. Valve closed, lots of water, and then use a bacteria and enzyme treatment. When it comes to odors, so the science behind odors, inside your holding tank, you have pee and poop. Nature wants to get rid of that pee and poop through biodegradation. So part of this, the process in your stomach is you have bacteria, living organisms, that are inside your stomach. They're doing the pre-work for your own body to help excrete the waste. So if you can imagine the inside of your stomach, it's not exactly a cool, breezy area.
No.
It's hot, it's acidic, it's a pretty violent atmosphere for bacteria. So the type of bacteria that thrive are those that don't need oxygen and don't need water. So these are anaerobic bacteria. They're very good at breaking down waste. That's what they do. So when you go to the bathroom and the toilet, your poop is going to come out, and it's going to be full of anaerobic bacteria. Tons, billions and billions and billions in just the tiniest little piece of poop. Those bacteria are doing their job. They are breaking down that waste. They were helping when they were in your stomach, but they're also helping nature once it goes back into essentially the water system, because they're helping to break down that waste so that water can recycle back into the natural water systems. So they're doing what they're supposed to do. The problem is, because they were in this environment where there's no oxygen, no water, anaerobic bacteria have to release hydrogen sulfide gas. So as they do their job of breaking down the waste, they release gas, so they eat it, and they release gas, and that gas stinks. That's hydrogen sulfide.
Okay.
So that's where your smell is coming from. So
Okay.
technically speaking, if you were to go in, let's just say you took gallons and gallons and gallons of bleach and you poured it into your tank. Common thing that people love to do, but put a bunch of pine sol into your tank with the idea that it's killing the bacteria inside there. You don't want to kill the bacteria, because if you kill the bacteria, yes, it might solve a smell problem. The reason it's solving a smell problem is because you stop them from breaking down the waste. And now you have solid waste inside there that's going to start building up over time. So they are good, they are helpful, but they stink. So the solution is, if you use a chemical cleaner, something with sodium percarbonate, formaldehyde, bronopol, you don't see formaldehyde as much anymore. What they're trying to do is kill those bacteria. So I often say that every product on the market will they will claim they can break down waste, break down paper, eliminate odors. The truth is, they can't do all of those unless they're bacteria and enzymes. The only type of treatment that can do that is that. And I'll explain that for a second here. Mineral products are highly antimicrobial. So mineral products go in and kill bacteria. Okay, great. No more odors, but also no more waste breakdown. Same thing goes for chemicals. They kill odors. Great. They kill the bacteria, but no more waste breakdown. Then you go into the enzyme only. Enzymes are the opposite of that. Enzymes are really good at taking big things and breaking them down into small things. And by the way, people get confused on this. In case you're curious, enzymes are not living. They are proteins. Bacteria are living. So enzymes are nothing more than just proteins that take big things and break them into small things. So with an enzyme-only treatment, waste breakdown, you got that. No odor control whatsoever, which is why you'll see a lot of enzyme-based treatments have a lot of fragrance in them, because they're trying to cover it with fragrance. Okay. So the only product that's on the market, the only type of formula that can actually do it all, is bacteria and enzymes. Because bacteria, by their nature, eat the waste, and as they eat the waste, they break down the waste, but they also instead of releasing hydrogen sulfide gas, aerobic bacteria, which is what we put inside the tanks, release carbon dioxide and water. So as they're breaking down the waste, they are releasing odorless carbon dioxide and water. And you want to target, there are some products in the market that are exclusively bacteria, but you really want ones that have bacteria plus enzyme. What that means with the plus enzyme is we're adding extracellular enzymes. So these are like kind of their own enzymes. Bacteria make enzymes. They can't break down the waste on their own. They're teeny tiny little things. So they like shed billions of enzymes, and those enzymes go and break the big things into small things so the bacteria can come behind and eat it. Well, we like to add extracellular enzymes, ones that are not being created by the bacteria, because they start to work immediately.
Okay.
If you're waiting for bacteria to release their enzymes and do their job, you may have already packed up your campsite and headed home. But by using enzymes, we can jumpstart that waste breakdown that gets those bacteria moving in hours, not days. So that's why when we use bacteria and enzyme, we can break down paper, all brands, in 24 hours, sometimes less, 8 hours, 12 hours. We can break down waste in 3-4 hours. If we didn't have those jump-starting enzymes, it would take longer. So the odor problem boils down to everything is working the way it should because that's what your stomach is trying to do. What you want to do to control odors is also very simple. Use a bacteria and enzyme treatment. And you got to remember, as I said before, enzymes are non-living organisms, bacteria are. If your bacteria are dying, guess what's going to take over? Those bad, stinky anaerobes again.
Yeah.
So you got to think about it the same. I mean, if you and I are in a climate where we're roasting, kind of like in this warehouse right now,
Yeah.
we're going to be lazy.
Yeah.
We're not going to work as hard. We're not going to do our job. But if you keep us hydrated, if you keep us cool, we're willing to work harder. And that's what's happening inside your holding tank. And I think there's this huge misconception. People think their holding tank smells because they're not using the right product. I can tell you this for a fact. Your holding tank treatment is a big part of it, but that's not the solution. If your holding tank is smelling, it's because it's turned septic. There's one of two things happening. Either your water level is too low and the poop has come up out of the water. I call this the porta potty effect. You've walked into a porta potty and seen that down there.
Oh, yeah.
You can't stop that smell. Nothing you can do. Unless you get that water level over that poop, you can't do anything to stop it. So first and foremost, adding more water will raise that level. Second off, adding more water cools the tanks down, keeps them cooler, and also hydrates the aerobic bacteria so they can do their job of doing the work. So let's just assume you're doing the right thing. You're using a bacteria and enzyme treatment. Great. It's really simple. Keep your valve closed and just use enough water. Quite frankly, you should be using enough water that you have to dump your tanks in 5 to 7 days. If you have to dump your tanks because you filled, that means you're using enough water. So this really isn't rocket science. It's pretty simple to understand how it works, but unfortunately, the consumer out there is just kind of confused because they're not hearing all of the right information. And then there's a lot of over promises from products that are out there when they just genuinely can't do the job because of the way their formulas are built. So hopefully that kind of answers and kind of clears up a little bit.
Yeah, and one of the reasons I was drawn to your product is because it acts much like the human microbiome. And I thought, wow, that's brilliant. That's absolutely fantastic. You're not putting all these chemicals in. Also, we have holding tanks, not septic systems, but it does have to go down into a septic
100%.
system. And all those chemicals are bad for that.
Yes.
So
we hear this one all the time. Holding tanks are not septic systems. And the funny thing is people are totally backwards on this. So we actually have on staff certified RV techs, but also certified septic techs. So we know about septic systems.
that's awesome.
Here's the funny thing. A septic system, by its nature, is full of bacteria from your poop. It also is not gassing up into your RV, so you don't care about smells. If there was one item you're not going to need to treat as much, it's a septic system because it's going to naturally follow that process. A holding tank, we jokingly say it, is basically a bucket underneath your RV with poop and water in it. In that scenario, you have 48, 72 hours for most weekend warrior campers. I'm sorry, but the bacteria inside there, they're not going to break down the paper or the poop in time to matter. And all you're going to have is stinky tanks because of the bacteria from your stomach. So you really should be treating your holding tank in your RV and you can be a little bit more loosey-goosey with your septic system. But so many people have confused that and conflated that, and they think that it's the opposite. So yeah, but you're right though. I mean, it's the same concept. We're using the same concept that we have in our stomachs to break down waste. I say this all the time. If you throw a banana peel on the ground, when you come back, eventually it will be gone. How did it go away? Biodegradation. Because there's bacteria and enzymes on that banana peel that do the exact same thing. We're doing that inside your holding tank. Nature is doing that inside your holding tank. It's just doing it in a stinky way. So we're trying to do it in a way that's less stinky and faster.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and you have a holding tank for us to take a look at to
Yeah.
show some things, right?
Yeah.
Let's go do it.
Let's do it.
So we're back with Chris, and he is a certified technician, and he's going to go through everything about best practices for a tank, and we have this lovely tank to demonstrate for us.
Absolutely. So we're going to walk through all of the different things which you may or may not know about a Blackwater holding tank. This is a one-to-one creation of a 40-gallon tank, and it is set up the way most, not all of them, there's a little bit differences between each RV, but this is set up like almost every single RV holding tank that's out there and installed on an actual RV. What we have here is it's sitting on what we like to call the frame rails. It's basically this little ledge which holds the Blackwater holding tank in between the rails that go sideways on your RV. So this is what's holding the Blackwater holding tank in space. It's really important to know that these exist because there's still voids in space inside of here. So that means that as you're driving along, if you've got waste and toilet paper inside of there, they can actually slosh up onto this ledge. And if you are not able to rinse away that waste and toilet paper, you're bound to get some odors because, again, it's above that water line, which Ricky talked about previously. So that's an important part of the holding tank to know about. Something else which is very important to know about is your location of your sensors. Sensors in a holding tank are always finicky, and it feels like an uphill battle. And the truth of the matter is it is an uphill battle. The reason for that is because they install the array of sensors on the same wall that the discharge port is on. So that means that even if you get the sensors working correctly, the next time which you go to dump your holding tank, all of the liquid is forced towards where all of the sensors are at and can re-clog almost immediately. That's why it is so important to use something like a bacteria and enzyme-based holding tank treatment to break things down as much as possible. So when you go to dump the holding tank, they're as small as possible so they don't get stuck to the sensors. That's why we highly recommend using a holding tank treatment that is bacteria and enzyme based so you can break all of that down and nothing will get stuck on the sensors. In this whole setup here, we also have it set up so that you can actually flush the toilet and we can start filling up and you can see exactly how it goes down as you're filling up the tank. Now, one thing which is super important is using tons and tons of water inside of your holding tank. Probably more than you think that you should use is the amount which we recommend to use. Because any waste which is not covered by this water line is going to create odors and potentially problems because anything which is above that water line is not blocked by the vapor barrier that water creates. So when it comes to maintaining a holding tank as far as an odor-free and trouble-free holding tank goes, we highly recommend using a 50-50 balance. 50% is using the right products so you can break down the waste. The other 50% is using the right process, and by and large, that's just using enough water inside of there. Mm-hmm. Another thing which is super important, and quite a few RVers don't know right when they get an RV, is that if you hold down your pedal just enough, you're not going to have any water flowing into the tank, but you can create a vapor barrier inside of the toilet bowl. That's going to be one of your absolute best lines of defense against odors in general, because even if your waste makes it above this initial vapor barrier, you just made a secondary one inside of your toilet.
So you're saying that you are just going to hold that down
just enough,
barely, to create a vapor
correct.
barrier.
So, and that's why it's so important to make sure that you have a gasket inside of your toilet which is able to hold water.
Okay.
Because having that amount of water inside of there is going to make it so much better as far as odor protection if you've got that vapor barrier. It's just like a P-trap under your sink. They're there and they're filled with water to be a vapor barrier. Since these are gravity fed, you have to make your own. And it's extremely important for everyone to understand that, like, keeping water in your toilet bowl in between uses is your best defense against odors.
Great advice.
Even in high heat. The other thing which we recommend is when you are flushing the toilet, it's easy to make sure that you have enough water. If you count to 10, just using the old Mississippi system, that 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, and so on till 10. Allowing enough water into your tank is going to also aid with the bacteria as it's moving around in there, giving it an excellent place to live. And then the waste in toilet paper is going to be its food source. And when you've got happy bacteria, you've got a happy holding tank, and that's going to also help reduce waste buildup and problems in general.
Yeah, because like this is slanted. For those of you, I'll put B-roll over it. So this is slanted here. So when anything comes down, if you have waste solids that come down or toilet paper, it just plops right on this holding tank and there's no water there.
Right.
So you have to keep the water going to push it down.
That's exactly right. And the nice thing about this, though, is that since there is a slight slope to it, as you press it down, it's going to help usher the waste and paper down. But the more water you've got up in that area, the better chances you're going to have as far as it moving it down into kind of that deep end of the holding tank.
Yeah.
Which is super important, like, for all things.
Yeah.
So in this setup, we also have a couple of very cool and specialized tools so we can demonstrate exactly how it works, because there's a lot of misconceptions when it comes to how you rinse your holding tank. A lot of people just think that turning on your black tank rinser is going to rocket water all over the tank and scrub it down.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that is not how that works. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it on right now. And that's as good as we're getting.
Yeah.
It's not
like a
rocketing.
light shower.
Yeah, it's like a very fine mister. It does not do a very good job of rinsing anything, but it does do a very good job of one thing, and only one thing which really matters in this is filling up the tank. Because the best way which you can rinse your holding tank is by filling it up as much as possible so you can get up to these ledges. So you want this thing as full as possible, and then when you dump that water, you're going to rush all of that left behind waste from the initial dump out of the tank. So it really doesn't matter how you get water into your black tank when it's time to rinse it, as long as you get it in there. You can use this, that's fine. That's a perfectly fine way to fill it up. You can watch through your toilet by holding down the flusher and looking down to see water as it's slowly filling up. You'll know that your tank is full when you start to see water backing up the pipe that connects your toilet to your tank. Because again, the sensors can be very unpredictable, and if you don't have working sensors at that time, you still want to know how much water is inside your tank, and your best bet is to look down through your toilet to do so.
Yeah, because some people will turn something like that on and they walk away and forget about it.
And it will absolutely overflow, and that's why from the manufacturers, all of the stickers for these tank rinsers state always leave your black valve open. That's because they don't want you overflowing your RV, which is sound advice. There's no denying that. But so long as you're paying attention to it, it's very easy to fill your tank up with water and then let it all rush out at once. And that does by far the best job as far as rinsing out your tank at the end of a camping trip. If you're on a full hookups setup, we highly recommend doing this once or twice. It's a lot faster to use a tank rinser than to just hold down the pedal. This, unfortunately, can take a long time to fill up a tank. 40 gallons is a lot of water, and a lot of the times the water flow from a campground is not the best. We can be down to like 1.5 to 2 gallons per minute, and that times 40 gallons is going to be about 20 to 40 minutes to fill your tank, which can be a really long time. But we're always limited to the flow of the water at any place. Just make sure you're paying attention to it when you're filling it up and then dumping it. So another area where people assume that they're doing a really good job as far as cleaning out their black water holding tank is by using something like this, a Rinse King, and they assume that it's just rocketing water at a super fast stream into the black water holding tank. And currently we have it on and running right now, and it's barely trickling into the tank. It's not even hitting the back wall. It's just slowly filling it up. So again, that's not a problem. All we're trying to do and all we're trying to recommend to people is to have you fill the tank up with water. No matter which way you do it is going to work out great. And make sure that there's somebody inside the RV who's able to view what's going on through the toilet so you don't overflow anything. But that is by far the best way to rinse out a holding tank. And it's also just very important to know that a lot of these tools which are on the market and say that they're doing this miraculous thing are really not, because of just how the plumbing is set up. Nothing more than that. It's, yeah.
Right, so if people come into the picture and it is like they get a brand new RV and the sensors are clean, they could keep it clean by doing these practices.
Absolutely right.
If somebody comes in with a used RV and the sensors are dirty, do you recommend them getting a professional tank cleaning?
There's a couple of ways which you can go about this. It's a really good idea to first try a way to clean off the sensors themselves first without requiring a tank cleaning. Tank cleaning services are great. They're not all created equal though, which is why it can be a little bit difficult to suggest one over another. The reason why is because a lot of companies will use like lower pressure washers to hydrojet the tank. These low pressure washers are not as effective as high pressure washers as far as breaking down waste and clogs and stuff like that, and even cleaning off sensors for that matter. So it's not a bad idea to have your tank cleaned if you start off with a dirty one. It's good to get a fresh start. But again, not all tank cleaning services are created equal. It's always good to ask before you hire a service, hey, what kind of a tank rinser do you use? If it's electric, a lot of the times it's not going to be strong enough in order to really get through the waste, or they may be able to get through the waste, but it can take 3 to 4 hours to do so. Whereas somebody who's using a more professional setup, like a gas-powered pressure washer along those lines, it's going to be a lot more force, and it's going to take a lot less time in order to really clean out all of the nooks and crannies, corners, and ledges of your holding tank.
Okay, so gas pressure is the key.
That tends to be the one which we've seen to be the best. It's also interesting to note that some of the companies that use the electric pressure washers will say to avoid using the gas pressure washers because you will do damage to the tank. However, using a clear tank or any of the other many holding tanks that we have at our disposal, we've run it at the highest pressure which you can, and we cause no damage whatsoever. So
good to know.
Yeah, just good to ask the right questions when it comes to these things. Some of the tank cleaning services can be super helpful, especially if you have a used RV and you don't know what's been in the tank. It's great to start off with a blank slate. That's for sure.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much
Absolutely.
for this display.
Definitely.
So I think we'll go into the other room and maybe show how the products work. So now we're back with Ricky again to talk about some poopy products.
Indeed we are. So we'll walk through here and kind of help you guys understand kind of how the different products work and don't work, kind of based off of some simple tests we do here. So one of the early tests we started doing decades ago was this dog food test. And we did the dog food test because we wanted to show poop breakdown without it being disgusting. So, you know, dog food has proteins, fats, carbohydrates, greases, oils, all the things that your poop would have. And it allows us to kind of pit the different products up against this breakdown and see what does and doesn't work. So we have several different containers here that we've put dog food in. And it's been running for, I guess, about 24 hours now at this point. So we'll kind of go through the different ones here. So one of the most popular products on the market is the Camco TST. This product is very well distributed. People are very familiar with it. And like every product on the market, it's going to tell you that it breaks down waste and that it eliminates odors. But as you can see, this has been going for about 24 hours, and there are a few that have fallen,
Right.
but for the most part, it's all still essentially the exact same way it was when we first put the dog food in. So, this is an easy test people can do at home. It's just kind of a quick and dirty way for you to see if the product that you are trusting is breaking down waste actually is.
Right.
The next one is Porta Pak. So this product, when we were talking about chemical products, We went through mineral, chemical, enzyme, and bacteria. These would both fall into the chemical zone. So the way these products work is they can kill odors, as I was talking about, potentially, kind of. They don't, but scientifically they're capable of doing that. So these ones can go in and kill bacteria, but it's going to stop the breakdown of waste at the same time. So you can see exactly that. So this is Wallex Porta Pak. Also, you'll see on the front there, it claims to do all the things, breaks down waste, eliminates odors. I can tell you this, we have run this test. Fair crack at Camco. If you let this sit in there for, say, 7 days or so, the dog food will get soft.
Okay.
So there is some amount of waste breakdown they are getting, but it won't fall apart. The paper won't digest. It will get soft. With the Wallex Porta Pak, we could leave this in here for 2 months, and that dog food would never break down. So this product, I would say, is one through ample amounts of testing, has never once been able to show waste breakdown at all. Camco, it's not the best, but eventually it can get there.
Okay.
This one is kind of an internet favorite. If you've been to Quartzsite, you've seen these guys. This is Happy Campers. This is one of the examples of a mineral product. So this is where it's using zinc sulfate monohydrate to go inside your tank, and it's basically like pouring really strong hand sanitizer into your holding tank. This product, I would say, not only does it not break down waste, I would say it actively works against breaking down waste. I mean, you can actually see this is a water control over here. And if you start to let it go, you'll start to see the water in the next 2 or 3 days will start to soften this stuff up. This will never soften up, ever. So it actively fights against the breakdown process. The thing about this product, too, that people need to understand is that there's a reason why you can't use it in California. It's because it's highly toxic. And it's one I would highly recommend people avoid. This is one of the few products that if we're setting up a test or a demonstration, I glove up, I mask up, I put glasses on, because this stuff is a very nasty mineral. Like, you just don't want this stuff.
I didn't know it was banned in California.
Yeah, it's banned because it's a forever chemical. So once it gets into the wastewater, or not into the wastewater, but just into the water system, the groundwater, it never goes away. And it's toxic to sea life, it's toxic to all kinds of native plants. So it's bad, that's why they outlawed it. But from the human perspective, it's also quite dangerous.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know there's a lot of people who love it. They claim that they love it because they would say it's the only product that works in high heat. I would actually argue the reason why it's working in high heat is because it tends to be full-timers who use this product. They're just better at using their tanks. So they know how to use enough water. They're dumping their tanks regularly. It might be killing all the odor inside the tank by just destroying the bacteria. That is possible. I would actually go so far as to say that in our testing, we don't see a huge odor remediation. It's from good practices that this product tends to make it look like it's working, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So this is RV Digested Ultra. This is one of kind of our classic products. So you can see inside here, the dog food has been, I mean, essentially just completely broken down. It's all settled down here at the bottom.
There's nothing.
Yeah. So you'll see that typically in just a few hours with this one. So this would be an example of a bacteria plus enzyme. There are a few products that are on the market. I can't speak to all of them because they're always changing their formulas. But historically, Thetford has had a bacteria-only product. Valterra with a few of theirs, but the Pure Power used to be exclusively bacteria, not bacteria and enzymes. So those products were decent. They would break down waste, but it just took a really long time to get there because you need those added enzymes to jumpstart it. So when you see this product breaking down the waste in just a matter of a few hours, that's because those enzymes really jumpstarted it. And if you think about it, enzymes break down the waste. It's the bacteria that then come back behind and get rid of the odors. So that's why when we say bacteria and enzyme is the gold standard, it's because even though they all claim to be able to do everything, only this type of product can do that. And we're not the only bacteria and enzyme treatment on the market. There are other bacteria and enzymes. So even if you think that I'm totally full of it and I'm, don't listen to that guy, fine, but just get a good bacteria and enzyme holding tank treatment. I would argue when you compare all those, ours will still be the better version of them, but at least start there. And then this one here is just a control of water. So you can see, I mean, at the end of the day, you might look at this one here, the Happy Campers, and go, oh yeah, it's kind of working. I see stuff falling. Or if you can kind of see it here, some of the Camco, oh, it's working. Nah, really, it's just the dog food just in water starts to fall.
Right.
One other thing we've brought out here is pine sol. So this is something we hear about all the time now.
I've heard about that too.
Yeah. So there's a few professional holding tank cleaners on the market or out there who they essentially power wash your holding tank for you. They back pressure spray into the tank and clean it all out. They make the claim that you don't want your waste to break down because if it breaks down, it creates what they would call a pancake sludge. There's this idea it creates this kind of like what you're seeing here at the bottom. Mm-hmm. I'll move this so people can see. But kind of this like little layer of sludge down here. Mm-hmm. And they claim that when they go to clean the tank, that sludge starts to build up and get stuck inside. I can tell you for a fact, we have been on site with professional tank cleaners. If there's enough water inside the tank, it rinses right out. So if there is any legitimacy to this idea of there being sludge, it's not that it's a bad thing to break down waste. It's always a good thing to break down waste. What that would indicate is you're not putting enough water. You've created a thick sludge. Mm-hmm. So break down waste, yes, that's a good thing, and use a lot of water. That's what we just keep saying over and over and over.
Water.
Yeah. So they claim that pine sol will go in and it will take your poop and make it not break down. Well, there's a few things to know there. First and foremost, if you're using paper, it also means your paper is completely staying intact. Now you have misreading sensors, and more than likely, you have clogs from paper, not from poop. So if you're using pine sol, you should definitely not be using paper because it will not break down. And paper is what causes more clog and sensor issues than poop ever does. Mm-hmm. The other thing to know about poop is if you put poop in water, there's just so much poop talk.
Yeah,
always
lots
poop
of
talk.
poop. We like poop.
If you put poop in water and you just give it slight agitation, driving down the street, just even in the RV rocking slightly, that physical motion is going to break that poop apart. Mm-hmm. So you could make an argument that just water in a holding tank will break down poop. It will. Mm-hmm. It's slower to do so, and we want to do it as fast as possible. But I can tell you this, we have done tests where we have added pine sol to water. We've even put poop directly in pine sol. And there's no way that poop is staying solid. It always breaks up, always. Mm-hmm. Furthermore, we reached out to the people at Pine Sol and we said, hey, is this a good idea? Should we do this? And they were like, no, you should not be putting Pine Sol into holding tanks. It was not made for this. It's made to clean floors. It's made to clean, to disinfect. So they're not advocates for people putting it in the tank. Also, we've done testing. It loves to chew up all of the valves and the gaskets. Ooh. It's caustic or it's damaging to the rubber and the silicone and all of the valves. So I would say if you're thinking Pine Sol works, if you've heard from a professional tank cleaner, and I want to be really clear, we love professional tank cleaners. Mm-hmm. We advocate that people get their tanks cleaned. This is one of those scenarios where they're just not telling you the full truth, and I think it's because they think they're warring with the holding tank treatment business, and if people use treatments, they wouldn't use them. We recommend you do both. We recommend that you use a treatment, and we recommend that you also get your tanks cleaned. How often? It's up to you. Once a year, once every couple years, but do it. It's a good idea.
Yeah. So, like as far as product, with a normal holding tank, I don't know what the sizes are, but how much would you use of that? And like after you dumped, you'd add some water to your tank, and then how much would you use of that?
Yeah. So basically, you're going to dump your tank. You're going to close your black tank valve. Put in 3 to 5 gallons. Again, you're filling a lot of that pipe that goes from the back side of the tank to the discharge valve. And then in the case of this one here, you're going to put in 1 ounce of treatment. And that will treat 40 gallons. Okay. Something else to keep in mind. When you have sodium percarbonate, if you put in this much, you always have this much. If you put in zinc sulfate monohydrate, if you put in this much, you always have this much. If you put in 1 ounce of this, this is a living, replicating bacteria.
as it sits inside there, that much turns into trillions of
Like a
bacteria.
culture.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's going to grow and build inside your tank.
Love it.
And that's another thing people don't really think about. You can do these little tiny tests and little tiny things like this, and you might go, oh, I think it worked. Well, put that in a 40-gallon tank and see what it does. It's a very different story. So 1 ounce will treat this, but you really are getting that exponential growth of the bacterial colony inside there.
And then if people have a poop pyramid, if they did make the mistake, I know you have a product that is more of a super clean. How can they take care of this without having to hire a technician to come out and do it?
Yeah. So I often use dental as my analogy. It totally works. So think of this as like daily brushing of your teeth. You want to brush your teeth every day because that stays on top of problems. If you treat your tank with a bacteria and enzyme treatment every time, that stays on top of problems. Now, every once in a while, you want to go to the dentist. Every 6 months, once a year, to get a deep clean. We have a product called Clean It that is essentially that. You fill your tank with water, you add the Clean It, and it goes through and it cleans. Earlier, when you guys were looking at the ledges and all the corners and the low spots, it cleans all of those. So it's like a really nice deep clean. Then you have things like sensor misreads and clogs. So it might be a pyramid plug. Another one people don't think about often is a compacted tank. This is where you've put your RV into storage with a full black tank, and then all of the liquid evaporates out of the tank, and you're left with a brick of solid poop and paper. That's a compacted tank. And then sometimes you can get a plugged line of just paper that's in the line. So we have a product called Clear It. That product will open those types of clogs. A pyramid plug, it can open in 12 to 24 hours. A compacted tank, it depends. If you have 40 gallons of solid hardened poop, it might take a few days. So that's Clear It. And if you have misreading sensors, this is a confusing one. People have their sensors inside their tank, and they just assume that a piece of paper is stuck here, and that's what's causing the misread. But what really is happening is paper is stuck here, and it's draping down, and it's hitting the water level someplace, which is creating that connectivity of that electricity. So not only do you need to take it off here, you also need to make sure there's nothing dangling down at any place. So Restore It goes in and cleans up that paper. Again, poop doesn't really cause sensor misreads. Poop doesn't do a whole lot to cause clogs. It comes back to paper. So as helpful as this test is, you really want something breaking through paper if you really want to get the full picture. So we have a product called Restore It that will clean up those sensors. So brush your teeth daily with Ultra, RV Digested Ultra. If you need to do a biannual deep clean, Clean It, and then Clear It, unclogs, and Restore It gets rid of the sensor problems. I do want to say this though, even though we recommend people do Clean It a couple times a year to deep clean a tank, again, I want to just reiterate again that we love tank cleaners. If you feel like you want to get your tank professionally cleaned, we are big advocates for it.
Perfect. Do you have anything to add about gray tanks?
Yes, gray tanks. Here's where people start to hate me. I would love to sell gray tank products to everybody, but if I'm being completely honest with you, you really should not be using a product in your gray tank. It won't hurt anything, it's just a waste of money. Here's the thing, gray tanks, there's a few things that can cause problems. Most of it comes from food.
I do that all the time.
Yeah, so you're camping, your gray tank valve is closed, your food, just by cooking, is letting certain little bits of grease or soap or surfactants or anything down in that tank. Hair, yep. So if you're getting a clog and a backup, a lot of times that's actually from the P-trap itself. Just got to clean the P-traps. If you're starting to get that smell coming out of your gray tank, that's because you've got grease and all kinds of stuff that's caked on the walls and the floor. So you could use a treatment to solve that. We have instructions on our bottle for how to use RV Digested in a gray tank because so many people want to use it there. But I'll be completely honest with you, the best way to take care of a gray tank is just to deep clean it. So here's what we recommend. Dawn Ultra, it's just the little blue Dawn bottle. You can get it at Sam's Club or Costco for super cheap, the big bottle. If you're a full-time RVer, we recommend you do this once every couple weeks. If you're a weekend warrior, you clean your gray tank once it starts to smell. Or if you want to be proactive, if you're on hookups, when you go to bed at night, you're going to close your tank, close your valve, turn on your shower, your sink, whatever. You want to fill your tank up completely. And then you take about 16 ounces of that Blue Dawn and just glug it down in. Dawn, unlike bacteria, I was talking about that culture that grows all over, Dawn won't do that. Dawn will start to settle slowly down into the tank and it'll sit down at the bottom. So time isn't magic there. So you can let it sit overnight, open up the valve in the morning, and more than likely after one clean, your tank is going to smell way better. Now, if you have misreading sensors, it might take 2 or 3 of those cleanings to restore those sensors inside the gray tank, but you can follow that process of cleaning in your sleep. If you're a boondocker and you can't necessarily close your tank, fill it up with water, and just dump it in the morning, we recommend you get into the habit of just deep cleaning on the last night of your trip. So let's say you go out on a Friday and you're coming home on a Sunday. Saturday night, you know you're packing up the next day, you do exactly that process. Close the gray tank valve, fill it with water, or fill up whatever left there is.
Yeah.
Add your Dawn, and in the morning when you're packing up, go to the dump station, dump your gray tank. That will proactively keep your tanks in good shape. So if you're following the right practices for gray tanks, you should not need a treatment. People love selling you treatments. People love buying treatments, but I'm telling you right now, most of them are citric acid. I mean, you might as well go out and spend 35 cents and buy citric acid yourself and just throw it down the tank.
Yeah.
It's not really doing anything.
Yeah.
The other thing I will say too that's going to really make people hate me, if you're on full hookups, you can leave your gray tank valve open. So the reason why you keep your black tank valve closed is because if the tank is left open, when the waste falls into the tank, as you saw, it's kind of angled, the poop and paper land right here. If the tank is open, the liquid just flows on out naturally. But the paper and poop starts to build up and create a pyramid plug.
Yeah.
Unless you're putting poop and paper down your gray tank, there's no major solids that are going into your gray tank. So if you're scraping your plates, you're doing all the stuff that's the best practices before you wash, maybe you'll get some food bits. Maybe you'll get some toothpaste and some shampoos that could be kind of some greases and oils. But there's no solids to build up inside the gray tank. So you can leave that gray tank valve open. Now, admittedly, the floor of the gray tank will start to get some grease buildup on it, which is why you want to do those regular cleanings. But in that scenario, that waste can roll and just flow right out because there's no solids to stay behind. The only caveat to that is if you're in a campground with sewer flies. People think sewer flies are everywhere. Sewer flies are kind of in certain campgrounds, and then if you let yourself become infested with them, then you kind of become a carrier of them until they kind of die off, and you can kill them off. But if you go to the campground and you open up the sewer cap there and you see flies, keep your your gray tank valve closed there. But if you don't see flies, you're probably good to keep your gray tank valve open and then just occasionally deep clean it.
And then we talked about this earlier, but just mention about the Dawn dish soap because I asked you if it was had a lot of chemicals and was bad, and you go ahead and talk about what you said.
So historically, it's funny because there's a lot of companies who've tried to copy Dawn, and they're kind of magical. They can't. So it used to be an enzyme that they used, a package of enzymes. And then they've switched over the last few years to becoming just a package of surfactants. So surfactants are essentially soap. They just help make water slip out more is all they do. So Dawn, if you're concerned about it affecting your tank, if you're concerned about it affecting your septic system, if you're concerned about it affecting even the environment around you, there's a reason why they use Dawn when there's oil spills. That's why they have that little duck on the front of it, because they literally use it to help clean up wildlife that's been covered in oil.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So it actually, the half-life on the surfactant is fast. It dissipates quickly, and everything that we've read, I don't work for Dawn, but I can tell you, everything we've read would indicate there's almost no long-term environmental impact whatsoever on it. So if you're using it regularly, you're totally fine. You're not really hurting or damaging anything.
Perfect. Well, thank you for this poop talk. I think it was absolutely lovely, and I hope everybody got a lot of good information. And by the way, I'm not sponsored by them. I met them at a rally, and we decided to do a video together because I really wanted to get to the truth of black tanks and gray tanks, just so I could help all you guys. So thank you for letting me come here and showing me around. It's been absolutely wonderful.
Thank you. It's been great having you.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.
As voiceover goes, I'm going to turn it on, and as you can see,
oh, we have a leak.
Little leak. That's all right. There's. We have that thing closed.
Oh,
that's why.
That's going to be great for the video.
Totally.